Dear trading friends, welcome to a new video on my channel. Today we are going through a trading strategy. I would like to share this with you now. Recently I have explained this trading strategy in many private calls and people are really successful with it. And today I just want to share it with you so that you can open positions at almost perfect entries. If not, you can compound them and place them a bit better. We do all of this with limit orders. And what is the big advantage of this? We are not just looking for an entry anywhere in the market. No, we are looking at where the market makers want to push the price, because we have insight into this in the form of the liquidation heat map, which I have just shown you. I will also show you a reason why I have now opened new positions as limit orders for Ethereum, Bitcoin, and Solana, for example, because these prices or the market makers almost always push the price towards the liquidations. Of course, you can consider I am going short now and want to go there. The problem, however, is that these are not always picked up 100% immediately. It can also happen that we continue to rise now and they are only picked up later. And that's why, in my opinion, it's better to let the price area be pushed by the market maker here and then enter a long order in this area so that it can be built up. I personally do all of this with very low leverage. With coin margin, I use 1 to 2 times leverage because then I have 50 to 25% liquidation before this is reached. That's when I use my Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Solana. With US Tether, I do it up to 2, with 2 to 3 times leverage. And then it's like this. Later, as soon as we return to this bullish momentum and break through various resistances upwards, I can scale my position. I have made very good entries and can scale them up gradually, partially taking out some profits as well. But how do we proceed in detail? Not only that, I also look at the market structure in this area, of course. This can be done additionally. I'll show you in a moment why and how that's not a bad thing, simply to get a confirmation. Now, let's take Bitcoin as an example. We are now looking at Bitcoin 3-day liquidations. CoinAnk, take a look at this. I will display it, coinank.com, and there just type CoinAnk liquidation heatmap into Google and you'll get to this exact area. If you want it to be read like this, you can simply switch from Viruldis to Magma. For me, it's just a bit nicer to look at. But we see here, it is glowing brightly down to a price of around 94,100. There's really a lot of liquidity here, or rather long positions that have their liquidations here. One must not confuse that. Liquidity is a bit different from the liquidations that were built up by long positions. And market makers, it's a magical attraction, yes, a focal point for market makers, to push the price there and absorb the liquidations. And I showed you earlier, my position today in Bitcoin is currently at 94,250, a limit order that I have set there. This fits in wonderfully here because we have something very bright here, which is incredibly good. For the price, in this case, it's downward, but rather so that this price can be pushed there. However, it is very rarely the case that only this part is picked up, but rather the rest of these liquidations that are still lying here are also picked up. And precisely because my 94,250 are down there. It lies in this area. I will, of course, adjust that a little bit. That means I also observe this day by day and see if anything changes, whether I can push them further up or down when new liquidity is absorbed. But that's just super simple. I now have a 2x position in Bitcoin here. That means the price can dump another 25% without anything happening to my position. However, if more liquidity builds up below or the liquidations occur, I simply compound this position and wait for this reversal. Why reversal? If I now go into a higher time frame, let's take a closer look. One can then imagine where the price might go next. This means if we want to go further down here, in a week you can see wonderfully how much is actually still there. That means this is really a feast for the market makers. If it doesn't happen today, maybe at the start of the coming week, we might still pick it up. But the more we short it now, the more liquidity or liquidations build up above it again. That means there is also a reason for the market makers to initiate a reversal and pick up the part up here. I'll quickly switch to the 2-week chart or the 1-month chart because I think this is exactly here. Here you can see that there is incredibly good liquidity or liquidations upwards. This means that the chance of this being picked up here so that the upper area can be reached is very likely to happen. Maybe take a look at it depending on when you watch the video to see if it has happened that way. But exactly, in the 1-month liquidation heat map, that is for me the point that I believe will not remain untouched. There's so much there. We're talking about each column, nearly 500 million, another 477, again, 500, 479. We're already talking about 2 billion, 2.5 billion, 3 billion. This area here, meaning that it will still be picked up and in the long term end up here. The chance is really very, very high here. And if you look at this in the past here, the same thing has happened repeatedly, so that we, even when we were already at $109,000 here, at nearly 110,000, actually not really expected, let's say, so that we would see the 98,000 again afterwards. But you can see here these liquidations that have built up, which have continued to push everything upwards, was simply picked up with a wick, and you can immediately see that in this area, the new liquidations have built up. It went up, picked up this new liquidation area, and then it was shorted down again, where exactly this new area here was picked up. And only since these shorts were opened, you can see that there are really a lot of liquidations lying above. The light yellow simply means we have an incredible amount lying there that needs to be picked up. And that's why I'm rather currently with Bitcoin, I'm still with my limit position. I also still have one open, which means I would compound it downwards so that it subsequently goes up and picks up this area, where I also slowly but surely see my take profit zone. The same now with Solana. Let's go to Solana. I have a position open in Solana at $186, so it's opened. When I now look at the Solana liquidation heat map, 3-day chart, so 3-day liquidation, it's not the chart, but 3-day liquidation, we see that at $187, there's an incredible amount. We have 186, 185 down to here, actually down to about 183. There's something in there. For me, it's such that I always take an intermediate price because I don't want to miss out on this accumulation. If the wick only goes up to here and I have my position down here, then I miss an incredibly good entry if it should go back up. We will also look at what happens if it doesn't go up but continues to go down. That's why I say build these positions with low leverage. But here too, we see that after this massive sell-off, no new liquidations were built up, but it only started in this area here, and currently as well. This means that this price range up to around 183, between 188 and 183, is super interesting for the market makers, as it could be picked up again. However, why do I say this? Because we also have something up there. For me, it's simply Bitcoin. When I look at Bitcoin now on a weekly or even a 3-day basis, it just shines so brightly down there that for me as a market leader, as a herd leader, so to speak, in the crypto space, it suggests that it is more likely to go down and pick that up. And then Solana would also likely follow this move. That's why I focus very, very strongly on Bitcoin to see where I might find new entry zones for Solana or Ethereum. You can see Ethereum here. We're just looking at the 3-day liquidation heat map. And we currently have a massive amount at 2,800. That means, of course, it could be that we also pick up this area. For me, however, it's such that I don't go long immediately. At least I still have one open that wasn't liquidated during this massive crash we had. The world record liquidations that were picked up from 2 billion that I compound my position when I go down here. And that's how I proceed. And that's how each of you can proceed. And currently, it's also the case that I see here, okay, we no longer have anything below that I would need to build further. For Bitcoin, it would be someone, let's maybe take a look at XLP. XLP is also very, very interesting because it has good movements. And here, for example, you can see XLP for that. And this is a good example. I can hear this is a very, very good example. Very nice that I found this now. In this area between $2.33 and $2.30, there is an incredible amount. The price, you can see here, new short liquidations are now building up here, and they will gradually become larger the more the price is pushed down. And in this area, for example, I could place a limit long order here at 233, at 230. And then also check, okay, we have liquidity in this area at 226, 225, where I can buy in again with limit orders. That means my average purchase price would then be somewhere around 229. And I would have the opportunity to ride the upswing upwards. It doesn't mean that it always happens. Please be aware of that. Because if you now, for example, see this liquidity here and want to go short here, you can see what happened. New liquidity has built up, new liquidity has built up. It took a little while until we went down again, but that's why I mean building up liquidations, finding the zones, placing limit long, or in this case, short orders, and then you can take it down with you. But I would do all of this, and I'm telling you honestly, always it looks a bit overwhelming, of course, with price action, with chart analysis. Because currently everything still looks rather bearish. We still need a lot of momentum to get back over the 100K and also to pass through this price area here, this small one that I have marked here, upwards again. However, this is, for example, a limit long order that I currently have open. And if we look at this now with smart money concepts as a small example, exactly where I have my limit long order open, you can see here, this is a fair value gap that has already formed here and has been picked up once. But that doesn't mean it's over now, because we've had massive liquidity intervention here again, and therefore there's a possibility that we might pick it up again. But now the following happens. We are now showing that you want to build your limit long orders. By the way, what you can also include is simply a volume profile indicator like VRVP, for example. And in this case, you can see where there is high volume when I draw it like this and where we might find support again. And currently it is such that exactly, you see this yellow line here, it would exactly match this area here at the moment. This volume that has been traded all the time, that we could find support here again. And that's why my order is also placed there. But what happens now? Let's move on to the example. Okay, you build your positions with low leverage, as I mentioned before. And even if you do it with higher leverage, when do you close? When would one stop? And that is precisely or continue to build up. And these are areas that should not be fallen below. In this case, for example, it would be this area here, volume. You can see it here, this whole sideways trend. If we were to break below it, in principle, it would already be the case further up, where it would be critical, where I would say, okay, I would close around here in this case. But if we were to close confirmed daily candles below in this case, I'm now looking at the daily chart, then you have the possibility here to say, okay, I simply believe now, because we have this low volume here, down to around 75,000, that I look for a price range here, which once it is confirmed to be broken below, I simply close my position. Yes, that I say, I want this last big volume bar here. The worst case would still be 86, because after that it's empty space. But that would be the possibility to say I might close my built-up position with minor losses. And then I know that if we go down here, I can rebuild in this area and enter massive longs. But before that, short again. But that's for the people who have little knowledge of the whole price structure of where support and resistance are. Just get these market makers, which are magnets for the market makers, and build low leverage positions there, and gradually, which you can increase more and more with additional limit long orders, and then take advantage of these reversals. Because when we pick up a lot by Bybit at the bottom, new things build up at the top, and then these price movements up and down occur. And don't forget, please don't forget, very important in conclusion as well, don't forget to take profits. Look into where new liquidations would occur if you are in a long position now, and take profits there. It makes no sense to leave everything open indefinitely. Take profits. You will be happy if you regularly realize profits. And you can, of course, do this in the short term as well if you simply go into smaller time frames or smaller liquidation maps. But you can proceed in the same way, so that you see that, okay, if we collect everything now, the next price target would be somewhere up there, because we would build new liquidity here. And you can take profits there. Otherwise, it would be great if you leave a like, if you subscribe, for all those who are not yet on board, especially those who are not yet on board. Hey, an exciting indicator awaits you. I believe it will be released next week. It will be free. You will also receive instructions on how to get it. But you have wonderful buy and sell signals with confirmations, take profits. Of course, there are sometimes false signals, but the majority is just so incredible. I just wanted to show that a little bit. That was a false signal, but it was massively good for that. Good again there, good here, good here. This insanely good here, yes. So stay tuned and again, subscribe to the channel. New videos are coming, and then you also have the opportunity to get this indicator. Until next time, bye-bye.